Many of the factors that have been attributed to the origin of inequality can be categorized into those stemming from understandings of the natural world and those from cultural developments in civilization. I wanted to see in this video how the relationship between naturalistic and cultural sources of patriarchal authority plays within Simone de Beauvoir's second sex, and in her attempt to trace how females were demoted to the position of second sex. In doing so, Beauvoir critiques both naturalistic and cultural arguments that play into the patriarchal oppression of women. In this video, I want to first outline Beauvoir's elaboration on various naturalistic arguments of inequality. In the second sex, naturalistic arguments comes in the form of materialist analysis of sexual and reproductive biology. Secondly, I want to analyze how cultural factors in sexual inequality are influenced by or a perversion of the biological arguments, in particular the conception of the subject-object dialectic. Lastly, I want to discuss how Beauvoir's conception of inequality and the distinction between nature and society is influenced by her use of existentialist philosophy. Beauvoir's analysis of the naturalistic arguments starts from the bottom up, beginning with a detailed discussion on the biology of conception and ending with the psychological implications of the act of sex. The discussion on gametes and the nature of egg and sperm is more than just a lesson in scientific jargon. The identification of women as the sole source of reproduction has always been utilized by the patriarchy in producing norms and traditions subjugating the female and separating her from larger society. Many past philosophers writing on women's supposed natural inferiority have discussed how the unbalanced and polar roles between the sexes in reproduction means that the females are intrinsically subordinate to the males. Beauvoir, however, in her elaboration on the gametes, posits that both sperm and egg are functionally identical. Both of the cells are consumed in the totality of conception, and their existence ceases once the purpose of reproduction is fulfilled. Going even further, Beauvoir criticizes the simplistic dichotomy of representing males and females in the natural world through sperm and egg, through examples of asexual reproduction and the existence of hermaphroditic organisms. It is important to state, however, that Beauvoir recognizes the physical and reproductive differences between the sexes as a fact of nature. However, since through a discussion on gametes and the resulting materialist equality between male and female, any attempts by patriarchal authority to use this sexual differentiation as an argument for inequality is a logical fallacy. As she says in the first chapter, the perpetuation of the species appears to males as the correlative of individual limitation, so the phenomenon can be considered as ontologically grounded. This is where one must stop. The perpetuation of the species does not entail sexual differentiation. In the first chapter, she states, biological truths are one of the keys that enable us to understand woman, but we refuse the idea that they form a fixed destiny for her. They do not suffice to constitute the basis for a sexual hierarchy. They do not explain why woman is the other. They do not condemn her forever to the subjugated role. Here, Beauvoir rejects the idea that any biological characteristic of females demoted them to the position of second sex. Instead, the patriarchal forces promoted an illogical misinterpretation of the nature of reproduction to justify this inequality. In Beauvoir's conception of society, these arguments based on sexual differentiation lead to the propagation of the subject-object dialectic and the self-identification of females as the other. In contrast to various past thinkers who have written on the inequality between the sexes, Beauvoir completely separates the biological nature of women to the ideas of the feminine or of the female sex. Femininity, she claims, cannot be identified as a substance within female anatomy. It is not secreted from the ovaries into the bloodstream. As she famously wrote, one is not born but becomes woman. This distinction, in turn, is a repudiation of the biological determinist argument present within the patriarchy.
Que être femme, ce n'est pas une donnée naturelle. C'est le résultat d'une histoire. Il n'y a pas un destin biologique, psychologique, qui définisse la femme en tant que telle. C'est une histoire qu'il a faite, d'abord l'histoire de la civilisation, qui aboutit à son statut actuel, et d'autre part, pour chaque femme particulière, c'est l'histoire de sa vie, en particulier c'est l'histoire de son enfance, qui la détermine comme femme, qui crée en elle quelque chose qui n'est pas du tout une donnée, une essence, qui crée en elle ce qu'on a appelé quelquefois l'éternel féminin, la féminité.
Beauvoir's complete separation between sexual differentiation and societal inequalities between the sexes is indicative of her existentialist philosophy, in particular the idea of existence preceding essence. In this paradigm, the most important characteristics in shaping the behavior or identity of an individual is the choices that they make and the values they support, not their internal nature. For existentialists like Beauvoir, humans are born with a tabula rasa. The freedom of humanity is the ability to choose one's own future and existence based on their own internal personal identity and preferences. It is clear that women's freedom, the ability to make free choices without outside influence, is threatened by the subject-object dialectic. Male-dominated society, based on their misinterpretation of the nature of differentiation between the sexes and a philosophical focus on biological determinism, posits itself as the subject of reality, and the female as an objectified other. Beauvoir's analysis of past philosophers writing on the supposed inferiority of females shows that the support for the subject-object worldview is based within an appropriation of reproductive differentiation. Hegel, for example, from whose master-slave dialectic Beauvoir based her subject-object, used the idea of rape inferiority to characterize females as passive and males as active. If we reject biological determinism as Beauvoir does, we must question how the subject-object dialectic was able to dominate society so completely and universally. Here Beauvoir posits that women themselves have sociologically accepted their status as other in comparison to the male subject. She says in the introduction, "Why do women not contest male sovereignty? No subject posits itself spontaneously and at once as the inessential form from the outset. It is not the other who, defining itself as other, defines the one. The other is posited as the other by the one positing itself as one. But in order for the other not to turn into the one, the other has to submit to this foreign point of view." It is here that another existentialist concept, that of bad faith, becomes extremely important. Bad faith occurs when the mantra of existence preceding essence is overturned. An individual with bad faith will support institutions and decisions that may be harmful to him or her, not because of their free will, but due to some coercive influence. An important example of bad faith is shown through Beauvoir's argument that some females have offered themselves as vassals to males. Quote, "The man who sets the woman up as an other will thus find in her a deep complicity. Hence, woman makes no claim for herself as subject because she lacks the concrete means, because she senses the necessary link connecting her to the man without positing this reciprocity, and because she often derives satisfaction from her role as other." It is here that the unique position of upper-class women is discussed. The material benefits these women receive from their acceptance of the subject-object dialectic clouds their class consciousness, to borrow the Marxist term. Beauvoir uses the example of some Southern matriarchs who supported the institution of slavery during the American Civil War. In sum, we can see how Beauvoir's existentialism questions the legitimacy of naturalistic sources for patriarchal authority. The existence of women as free individuals cannot be controlled by their biological differentiation from males. In the end, the impetus is on women themselves to recognize the pervasiveness of the subject-object dialectic and to break through the acceptance of being other.